Hans, where can the retailer look for new ideas? We spoke about, some of the different countries offer different new product ideas and so on. So where else, or even from there, how do you even look for new ideas?
So I guess everywhere is the answer. One shouldn't limit one's thoughts or one's horizon. Otherwise you get into that classic case like the marketing myopia kind of principle, where
Right.
you say my competition is only these 5 hypermarkets or only these 7 fashion retailers, and I will not look beyond that.
Right.
There are so many places. You can get ideas from vendors, you can get ideas from trade fairs, you can get ideas from what is your strict kind of competition. You can get ideas from people who you normally don't call competition, like kirana stores or standalone retailers.
Right.
And, just take it from wherever it comes. I think, for instance, some of the best ideas we've had, for instance, in toys, came from small independent retailers. Because this is not a category that hypermarkets are, it's a smaller category for them. It's not so important.
Right.
But a standalone local toy retailer in a particular city has some products which he's first on the ball, let's put it that way.
Right,
and
right.
We got some really splendid ideas just to give you an example, I don't know whether you remember something called a fidget spinner.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we found that in an independent store, and then we sold tons and tons of that thing. But if I hadn't walked into that store that day, we wouldn't have known that it existed so early. Probably somebody else would have sold the heck out of it. Then there was another toy, which I don't think I can name it. But it was a very basic toy which we used to play with in our childhood, and then it got a new avatar.
Okay.
Again, I saw that in one independent store, and I called my toys buyer and said, what the heck is this? And he said, yeah, this is it. And it was retailing through an Indian company which just couldn't make the quantity that we needed. And we took a call not to buy the branded product, and we got it out of China, and we sold tons of it. We just couldn't get the quantity here. So, things like that. So if we had only been looking at our 5 rivals, and particularly, if you are the leader, you obviously have to be looking for new things that nobody else has. So you maintain your lead, because within 3 months or 6 months, everybody is going to have what you have. It's a mistake which I find is commonly made by people who work as buyers, that they don't look hard enough.
So basically, you're saying that they wear blinkers, but instead they should be like the ancient saying, which says, let noble toy ideas, maybe instead of noble thoughts, come from all directions, right?
Absolutely. And another habit I had was whenever we had to meet a vendor, I think 9 times out of 10, I would try to go to the vendor's premises rather than call him over. Because, in their showrooms, in their factories, whatever, there is so much that you can see.
Exactly.
When the vendor comes to you, he only brings a suitcase, and good luck to you. Whatever you see there is what you see.
And they also have filters, right? They also think that you will buy something, and they bring for that, or they want to promote something, they bring that. So there are biases from both sides, right?
Absolutely. And
go ahead.
And this becomes more so as in the early days of a company, it probably doesn't happen so much. But as the company becomes more organized and a lot of productive time gets spent on meetings and things like that, the buyers feel it's more convenient to just call the vendor over. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes they can make, because so much just goes out of the window because of that.
I can relate to that, having done general merchandise sourcing myself, and made it a point to go to Indonesia or other sources, and always go to their factories, and and see, walk around, and see what are you buying, what is different from what you're buying to what your competition is buying, and why they didn't offer. And then they will tell you, oh, I'd never thought that you will also be a buyer for this, and so on and so forth, because they are using their own filters to determine what you, based on your past purchases and things like that. So I can totally relate to that. But that's about new product ideas. After you have launched a new product, then you have to say, especially if it, like you said, some of them start picking up. So how you have to sell a huge quantity before everyone else introduces that, sell copycats or the same products, and so on and so. So what is the process of getting the maximum bang for the buck with these new products if you're a chain retailer?
So you actually have only two options, and it's like anything else. If you are dead sure about the product, and this has to do a lot with instinct and experience and so on. If you're dead sure, better take the risk, get a big quantity, and sell through before anybody else gets in the game.
Right.
And because if you are not sure, then it makes sense to do a small trial, see how it goes, and then take the big decision. But then you lose time, and by then somebody can sneak in. So it's a bit of a gamble, and you need to have confidence in your own abilities. As you grow bigger, it becomes much riskier, because when you are smaller, if you take a few risks, you can get away with it. When you're buying for a larger number of stores, that volume becomes so large that after that, getting rid of it can be a huge problem.
So scale is the way to get bang for your buck, basically.
Having the courage to back your instincts, and then hopefully you're right. If you're wrong, of course, it's trouble.
Right. So, if given that, is retail buying, is it an art or a science? You can answer it with the Indian context, or maybe more broad-based.
So I don't know. I can look at it a little differently in a few different ways. So like I mentioned about when we were talking about regional versus centralized.
Right.
Again, in buying, probably in the beginning, it makes a lot of sense to depend on the individual and let them take the decisions. When the risks are less, and when the buyers can make a few mistakes and learn and get away with it. But as things develop, one needs to possibly depend more on data. Have a solid reason for doing whatever. You may, you can't do it when it's a completely new product, but you have some sort of similar thing to compare with, and maybe you need to do that. So again, I think it's a gradual transition which you need to do, and that's sometimes a very difficult part. Because once you are used to working in a particular way, it's like taking a salesman's territory away from him. There's going to be a lot of resentment. So when somebody is allowed to work in a freewheeling manner and then told that no, please justify your decisions
with data,
with the data, and with the data that makes sense.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So in retailing, both shopkeepers as well as customers frequently hear and talk about things like schemes and sale and discount, and you made a reference to it a little while ago. So are they really very important for a retailer?
I would say that as a customer, you have to treat these a little bit like you treat your credit card.
Right.
If you use it well, you can get the credit, and if you pay back on time, there's no penalty, and you are very happy. The credit card company probably doesn't like you too much. But you come out on top, and it's very similar.
You get 30-40 day free credit and things like that.
Absolutely.
As a customer.
Absolutely. So it's similar with these schemes. It's a mix of all. And again, it reminds me of an incident. There was a mall not too many years ago, which ran into some trouble, and they had to close down for a few days. And then they had to bring back their customers. So they had to do something pretty strong because the customers had pretty much gone, and it required some extra effort to bring them back. So they launched this massive promotion where they said, anything you buy in the mall, so much % off. I forget what the percentage was, but it was high. It was some 30, 40, 50% or something like that. And there was a smart accountant in my company who went there on the very first day, and he bought a phone of the premium brand, which you normally don't get a rupee discount on.
Right.
And he went there and said, it's 25% off on everything in this mall, so I want 25% off on this phone. And then he paid for it with a particular credit card on which you got a further 10% cashback. So you got 35% off on that phone, which
it was impossible.
It was absolutely impossible. And honestly, I don't remember whether it was 35. It was probably maybe even 50 or something like that.
And you might have even got a few days free credit also. Because by the time the bill comes.
Absolutely. So that was a smart guy. So the point is, there's so many dimensions to this. Every retailer puts up liquidations because from time to time they need to get rid of old stock.
Correct. Now,
that is the time when the deals can be extremely interesting. However, there are also all sorts of other schemes, and now, manufacturers are even manufacturing for schemes. So for instance, in apparel, there is apparel which is made for the sales, period.
Okay.
So, that is marked up in an appropriate way so that even, when you buy it at the sale, nobody's really losing any money or losing, let's say, less money than you think they would be losing.
Right.
And similarly, because, India has this peculiar MRP system. MRPs on certain products can be very real. So if you're buying your favorite packet of biscuits or noodles, you pretty much know what the MRP normally is and what you're buying. So what can the retailer do? Make a special pack, put 3 other things with it, thereby sort of making the price not so clear, and then give a discount on it so that you feel that you're getting value, or make a bigger pack or a smaller pack or something, change the size of the packaging, so that again, it's not very clear as to exactly, what the price should be or could be or would be. And, So a little bit of, you can say, playing with the customer's mind can happen in these ways, where the customer may feel they're getting a brilliant deal or whatever. Or let's take another example where, so a smart customer will say, look, what is the price at which I should buy this? You don't worry about whether you're getting 30% off or 50% off, because that MRP is something which can be played around with.
Correct. This used to be part of the old arithmetic problems, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's what the customer really only needs to look at is that this thing is costing me $150.
Is it worth it or not?
Should I pay that $150 or not? Whether it's at 70% off or 2% off is really not the issue.
Correct,
so, I mean, you'll be surprised at how smart customers are and how quickly they see through, some of these things and realize, yeah, there are these 50 things here, but these 25 are really good value, and these 25, if I leave them, it really doesn't matter.
Right.
So this MRP system creates some of these issues, and retailers like to take advantage of them to whatever extent possible, and customers should also take advantage of them to whatever extent they can.
Right. So how are things? Let's bring to some of the things that we see in the more recent months. Within the last 12 months and so on. How has pandemic, from 2020 affected various types of retail formats? I guess some of them benefited, some of them didn't. E-commerce versus non-e-commerce, and so on and so forth. So tell us about it.
So initially, obviously, it hurt everybody, and then for the few days when very limited products, essentials, were the only things that were moving. I would say the kiranas actually surprisingly were the ones who were the fastest off the ground. And because they had to supply essentials, which obviously were happening all the time, pretty much. And I think they learned the new rules very quickly. They figured out how to make people maintain physical distancing, and how to keep a sanitizer at the door and make sure they didn't let in more than so many people at a time. And in any case, there were not too many options in the initial days, so people had to depend on the kiranas, and they did a good job and got things together really quickly. I think the second to get off the mark were the online people, who had to obviously they had to train their people to deliver in a different manner. They had to change their method of packaging. So that everything was sealed as much as possible, and that part also happened very well. I think the ones who were really hit badly were the brick and mortar retailers, particularly those who had a very heavy dependence on malls. Because the malls were not allowed to open for a number of months, and that so let's say if 75% of your business came from malls, that 75% was completely gone for those months, and walk-ins in the rest of it was also sort of coming at a much slower rate. So I mean, it was quite a battering, and it's not as if everything is normal. It's coming close to normal. But you only make a profit on that last 10-20% that you sell. So if you're not selling that, and while everybody has done their cost rationalization and so on and so forth, it's been tough.
So what are your thoughts on the outlook for the industry for the maybe next 5 years or even longer, given that there has been a little setback in the last 12 to 16 months?
It's really tough to say. So obviously the effects of this pandemic are not going away in the next 3 months or maybe 6 months or whatever. It's a longer haul that we have to be in for till everybody is vaccinated and safe for everybody to move around, because a lot of elderly people, a lot of people with comorbidities may not be comfortable moving out. Of course, factories are all running, and production is on, and most stores are open, malls are open, even eating places are open. Everything is pretty much open to some degree or the other. But my guess is, we are seeing that the difference, the speed at which online was gaining over brick and mortar, it's speeded up, the classic K-shaped recovery and all that. There was online was gaining, and now the speed of the gain has moved.
Accelerated.
It's accelerated for sure. So it's, I think it'll remain challenging for some time for the brick and mortar people. That's about the best estimate, because you really don't know where this pandemic is going, and with new strains, and the countries which were very confident opened up, and then they sort of closed down again. And so far in India, we are confident that we are on a good trajectory, but tomorrow never knows. Very difficult to predict, unfortunately.
Right. Given your long career, so looking back in retail, what are the things that you thought were true about Indian retail that either turned out not to be true or has surprised you?
Well, I think the speed at which online has developed is definitely something which is very, very interesting. I think in the initial days, we were very confident that a lot of FDI would come into India fairly quickly. And unfortunately, that's been a game of 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and sometimes even 1 step forward and 2 steps back. So that hasn't really happened at the speed that, let's say, retailers of my generation were expecting it to happen. The third thing is, as I mentioned, kiranas, will they be affected? Will they not be affected? We thought they would be affected to some degree at least. And I think that's another surprise. And the fourth thing, which we could have never foreseen, was, of course, the way this whole Omni game is being played and all these super apps coming. That was obviously something which, it was so far away in our mind space. We kind of we thought that things would just sort of continue but grow the way they were. But, such radical changes, sometimes I feel some of the things I'm talking about right now, they sound prehistoric or Jurassic, because things have moved on so dramatically.
Fast.
Yeah, right. It's like a new generation altogether.
True, absolutely. I mean, some of the things, we made a passing reference only. We didn't have time to discuss the super apps in China, and especially the retail that they do with in the super apps, the influencers, and so on and so forth. There have been cases of BMWs being sold via chat apps within minutes, not one, multiple pieces. There was a special edition red cherry color or something like that, and then sold out because one influencer talked about it. There were some others where they were driven around by a person, and people followed that person's driving experience for a few days and so on, and then in that process, that model was sold. And so there are lots of innovative ways in which mobile super apps, customer engagement and retail is happening today. We have not yet, and then China and in the Far East feel that they have not even explored it fully. So there's a lot of things waiting to happen, I guess. So yeah, sure. So there's fascinating discussion to understand how things have moved, Hans, from in a relatively short period of time, how from the hesitancy of introducing soon after liberalization of introducing some large scale retail stores in India, across India, to the pace at which we are seeing the Kirana stores managing WhatsApp and ordering and delivering and being the ones who are able to sustain even during the pandemic and so on. I think it's been a fascinating discussion, Hans, with you now. And we have covered a whole range of subjects over the last 30 years, definitely. And we had a good start with the history. Thank you very much. Completely enjoyed the chatting with you about the growth of retail in India.
Thank you so much, Venkat. And I have to say that I really enjoyed this chat, and it was great speaking to you.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Venkat.
Thank you for joining us in yet another episode of Move Conversations. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe to the Move Conversations YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get notifications of new episodes. Thank you very much. Till I see you in the next episode. Thank you very much. Have a great day.